Conservative new media viewers, Jeremy Lin fans around the world, what's up? It's me, PFV, Paul F. Villarreal, the NBA expert. We're here to discuss Brooklyn's 133-114 loss tonight to the Philadelphia 76ers in, can't remember the city that they're in, but they're in Long Island tonight, not playing in Brooklyn, but in, I think they're in the Nassau Coliseum tonight. Well, two things about this. First, I am just going to give an overall summary, and then I will go through the notes that I made as I watched the game. What happened, obviously, if you watch this game, was the enormous run that the 76ers bench went on, or I think it was mostly the bench, against the Nets bench in the first quarter and in the second quarter. I think the run at one point got as bad as 27-1. So minus 26 in that stretch for the Nets tonight. After a good start to the game, and it was a pretty good ending to the game. Look, as a single game, this doesn't mean anything. I mean, the Nets have played great in this preseason until this point in time. They just their bench really didn't have it tonight, and it doesn't matter. However, I'm a little bit concerned about this because of the 76ers themselves. If the Nets are going to challenge for a playoff spot, there's a good chance that one of the teams they might have to beat out is Philadelphia. And tonight, there looked like there could be some real matchup issues for Brooklyn against Philadelphia. And Philadelphia was missing one of their players, I think Fultz, who was not playing tonight. And he's also supposedly a pretty talented player, so he wasn't even there, and Joel Embiid didn't even play that many minutes. So that's the thing that concerns me about this game. The score, the result, that doesn't matter, but the head-to-head matchup against Philadelphia could be an issue, and that's the one thing that kind of makes me a little bit concerned. Hopefully things will look different the next time these two teams play against one another. And it could very well look different because Allen Crabbe and Caris LeVert got off to a really difficult start in this game. Although Caris finished the game well, and that's probably not going to happen all the time. And the bench as a whole just didn't look that good, and hopefully that is not going to be the case most of the times when we see Brooklyn's bench out there. So that's kind of an overall feel of what I had. In terms of Jeremy played pretty well in this game. Only thing you can really hit on in this game is he only had 1 assist and 3 turnovers, but he was kind of a little bit more in scoring mode tonight. So overall he played pretty well, I thought. He picked up 5 fouls, but he was able to stay in there for as long as Coach wanted him to be in there, which was about midway through the fourth quarter. And I thought he played well. He shot the ball pretty well. He was controlling things fairly well. So that's kind of how I felt like his night went for individually. Okay, now let's go over. I want to go over the notes that I made as I watched the game. Number 1. Philadelphia, late in the first quarter, I believe, maybe even earlier than that, seemed to go into something of a zone defensive position against the Nets, and that seemed to bother the Nets. And although usually zone defenses work when guys don't shoot that well. Although the lineup that was out there included Allen Crabbe, who is a phenomenal shooter. And I believe it did not include Joe Harris at that time. But the lineup included Allen Crabbe and Quincy Acee and Spencer Dinwiddie, all of who can shoot pretty well. But whatever it was, that defense seemed to throw Brooklyn off. And so now Philadelphia is going to say, okay, that worked. We're going to try that again the next time we play these guys. So Brooklyn is going to have to kind of figure that out going forward when they meet the 76ers again. The second note I made is that in this game tonight, Joe Harris was the 11th man played. And as we've talked about before, Coach Atkinson likes to play 11 guys. So then you have to figure out who's going to be that 11th man, because what you do is you have your starting 5, then you have your second string 5, and then who's number 11. Tonight, Joe Harris was number 11, and what that means is, well, and Jared Allen came in later, and he was number 12, and I'll talk more about that in a second. What this means is it appears as though Sean Kilpatrick is number 13. And I talked about it in the last video where I said I'm not sure if Joe Harris or Sean Kilpatrick is going to be number 12 or number 11 guy. And now it looks like we've got our answer. And the reason why that would be the case, if you're Coach Atkinson, is because Joe Harris is a really good three-point shooter. And Sean Kilpatrick shot the three pretty well last year himself, but Joe is a better three-point shooter than Sean Kilpatrick is. So I'm imagining that Coach Atkinson feels like he just wants a guy he knows can shoot the three with more regularity, or just has a better pure stroke, or whatever it is. Now, of course, that could change during the season, and maybe Sean comes back into the rotation or whatever, but based on tonight, it looks like Joe Harris is going to be the 11th/12th man. Okay? And again, I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Number 3, Caris LeVert, as I said, struggled at the start of this game. And the first thing I thought was, well, as good as Caris is, and as much as he has improved over the summer, and apparently he really worked hard this summer, and particularly worked and got his strength level up, I thought, I'm not sure he's ready to start yet. Because again, there's been discussion, should he start or should he not start or whatnot. That was my first feeling. Like, wow. But to be fair to Caris, he's missed a couple games before last game. So he just kind of probably not in sync yet. And he did finish the game really well tonight. So certainly he's got a lot of ability. It's just a matter of how quickly is he able to build his skill level up and perform consistently. And then you will get more discussions or more consideration of whether he does or does not start at that point in time. And part of it might also be if you wanted Caris to start, and maybe you wanted to put him at small forward along with Jeremy and D'Angelo, is Caris ready for that physically? Is he strong enough to be able to guard small forwards? I don't know. I'm not sure. But then we'll have to see what happens with that going forward. I already mentioned that about Philly being a potential playoff threat to Brooklyn, so that was my fourth note. One of the things I saw tonight in this game also was this is an equal opportunity offense, and that means anybody can pass and anybody can score, even though, of course, Jeremy and D'Angelo are the primary playmakers, at least in the first string. But sometimes you still want a go-to scorer. You still need to know kind of what the hierarchy is and who should get the ball when it's time to score. And I think that the team is still working on that a little bit. I think that sometimes there's a little overpassing and a little bit of indecision because that isn't really clear yet about, okay, we're going to use this guy. This guy is the number one scorer. We're going to get him the ball, and that's how it's going to go. So I think they're still kind of figuring that out, and I'll mention a little bit more about that in primary score thing in a while here. I said earlier that the zone defense of Philly bothered the Nets, and overall their defense bothered the Nets. The Nets in this game looked like they really needed more guys who could get to the basket. It seemed like they were settling for jump shots a little bit too much, and they could use a few more players on their roster who can get to the hoop with with some ability. And I mean, really, well, I was going to say Jeremy's the only guy you can think of off the top of your head, but Caris LeVert is also very good at getting to the basket. So those are a couple. D'Angelo, I think, can get to the basket, but that's not usually his mindset. So, but tonight with the Philly played very good defense, and it slowed the Nets down. Even though the Nets ended up with 114 points, I have not looked at the pace of the game yet, so I have to figure it out. But it definitely impeded Brooklyn for some period of time in this game, and so they're going to have to, make some adjustments on that. I mentioned earlier my note number 7, which is about who's going to be the 13th, 14th, and 15th men, and it looks like we have our answers to that. As I said, Joel Embiid only played 15 minutes in this game, and he totally destroyed Brooklyn. I mean, he just dominated them. 22 points and 7 rebounds in 15 minutes. He was on a minutes restriction tonight, and he just crushed Brooklyn. Look, he's a very unique talent. I mean, the guy is absolutely gigantic. I think he's about 280 pounds. I mean, he's even bigger than Mozgov is in terms of weight. But he's also got some perimeter ability, I think, in terms of dribbling and stuff. So he's just incredibly difficult to guard. It's actually a good thing that Mozgov is around, or somebody his size, because you there's no way you can deal with Embiid unless you are like at least 250, 255 pounds. He's just too big. But the problem for Mozgov is he's not going to be able to do a tremendous amount if Embiid goes out on the perimeter and tries to drive to the basket and stuff. Just he's not going to be athletic enough. So, as I said earlier, there's going to be some matchup issues in this when these two teams play each other for Brooklyn. And another one of those matchup issues is going to be Dario Saric, because Dario Saric played some at center tonight, and Mozgov couldn't do anything against him, just because Saric he's a very big guy. He's tall. I don't know his exact height, 6'10", 6'11", something like that. I don't know, around there. But he just went out on the perimeter and was shooting threes, and Mozgov's just not used to guarding out there, and he couldn't do anything against it, and Saric ended up scoring 26 points to lead the team tonight. So, again, that's another matchup problem, as is Ben Simmons, as might be Fultz when he plays. I don't know a tremendous amount about Fultz just because I haven't watched him play. I don't watch a lot of college basketball anymore, so I just don't know a ton about him. But those 3 players I just mentioned, they're going to be tough for Brooklyn to deal with. And that somehow they're going to have to figure that out, or they're going to have to find a way to offset that in order to beat Philadelphia or do better against them consistently. And I'm sure they will. I'm sure there's strategies and things they can figure out. But it's right now, it looks like the top end talent of Philly is better than the top end talent of Brooklyn. Brooklyn's good and they're deep, but at the very top of the talent pool on their roster, it just doesn't look as good as Philly's does. And that matters a lot in the NBA. I mean, depth is important, but you still need talent at the upper end, and that could be a problem for the Brooklyn in this matchup. And coming into this season and just kind of thinking and coming into this game, like I hadn't really considered that. Like I talked about Philly in the last video. I thought they were good, but not that good. But now, like I said, it's like, yeah, they could be a problem. They could be a problem for Brooklyn to overcome. If it comes down to Brooklyn and Philly for the 8th seed, that's going to be a challenge for Brooklyn. So we're just going to have to see how things play out. 9th note, Brooklyn's defense just wasn't that good tonight, as you would imagine. They gave up 133 points. They had played very good defense in this preseason up to this point, but obviously that was not the case in this game. And it just, Like I said, some of it's matchup stuff. Mozgov versus Embiid, Mozgov versus Saric, Ben Simmons versus whoever, because Ben is pretty big. He's got good height and size. He's athletic. That's a difficult matchup. So it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be something to work at. Now, I have said in the first two videos I did in this preseason that I did not think this would be the super D'Angelo Russell breakout season, as I've said before. I am beginning to change my mind on that. D'Angelo had 24 points tonight, 1 rebound, 3 assists. The reason why I'm starting to change my mind about that is because of some of what I hit on earlier, and as regards top-end talent. D'Angelo has a tremendous amount of talent, and the Nets need that talent, and they need that scoring ability. D'Angelo can score the ball fairly easily because he's a good shooter. He's a proficient three-point shooter. He's big and he's pretty athletic. So even though he doesn't he's not a incredible driver or attacker of the basket, it's still, just because of his physical ability, it's still really easy for him to score, even going towards and around the basket. Because of that, and because Jeremy is such a good setup man, I am starting to think he could make a pretty good push in terms of his points per game. And the Nets might need that. They might really need him to do that in order to be able to compete with a Philadelphia or another team with really high top-end talent. And so I'm starting to shift my opinion on that. And I do think that is, I'm not saying it will happen, but it could happen. And I can see where it might happen, and that might be for the best. Like I said, D'Angelo scores the ball fairly easily. He doesn't have to put a tremendous amount of effort into it. It's easier for him to score than it is for Jeremy to score. Jeremy might be the second best scorer on the team, although you could throw LeVert in there as well. But if it's easier for one guy to do it, then that's the guy you're going to have do it, particularly if your second best guy is a really good setup man. You just make it easy on everybody, and that could be what ends up happening this season, at least to a certain extent or in certain matchups. Okay. Number 12th note, I already said Brooklyn could use a little more drivers, playmaker, scorers, a little bit more athleticism, a little bit more top-end talent. That kind of, it looked a little bit lacking tonight. And particularly, again, because you just have a couple of unique talents on the 76ers and the players that I mentioned earlier. And again, we did not see Fultz in this lineup tonight yet either. Now, late in the game or in the fourth quarter, Coach Atkinson went with a shooting lineup. It was a shooting lineup with Jarrett Allen at center. And that was Jeremy, D'Angelo, Joe Harris, Quincy Acey, and Jarrett Allen. So what that gives you is you have 4 shooters out there in Lin, Russell, Harris, and Allen. You can spread the floor, and then you have a very good and athletic center that you can play pick and roll with, that you can throw lobs to and do stuff in that manner. That lineup, you might see a lot of that lineup. I mean, I certainly think that Coach Atkinson wants to experiment with it. That lineup was out there for a reason, which is, look, let's see if we can make this work. Because I like that we have the all of these guys are shooters, and we can really spread the floor with this lineup. So I don't know if we're going to see it much, but we might. It might be kind of a preview of what he wants to be able to do, and that, again, that could be the type of reason why Joe Harris is playing and Sean Kilpatrick is not. We'll just have to see what Coach thinks as we move along in the season. Now, I mentioned earlier about Joe Harris being the 11th man, and then Jarrett Allen was the 12th man. tonight. What I think might happen with that is, it is possible. It's possible that Coach Atkinson could try to play 12 men. And maybe like the 11th and 12th man just kind of get much lower minutes than everybody else does. What might end up happening, though, is you might see Harris and Allen kind of rotate in the 11th man role based upon whoever the opponent is. So if it's a good matchup where you need an athletic center and you need an athletic defensive center, maybe Jared Allen's the 11th man that night. If it's a matchup where you need a little bit more shooting, you need a little bit more spacing, maybe Joe Harris is the 11th man that night. Of course, as we go along in the season, for all I know, Jared Allen could end up starting. I mean, so we're only talking about the lineup at the beginning of the year. But that's... Those two do seem to be the 11th and 12th man right now. And I've said before that Jared Allen was playing kind of backup center, but the truth is he's playing third center, with Quincy Acee playing backup center and Trevor Booker playing backup power forward. Now, again, there's flux. Quincy Acee can be a power forward. Trevor Booker can play center. I think both of those things happen tonight. But just kind of a concept of the depth chart. It's basically Mozgov, Acee, Allen, and instead of Tyler Zeller being the third center, he's kind of the third power forward right now, behind Hollis Jefferson and Trevor Booker. That's kind of as how it's worked out a little bit right now. And again, we'll see. Hollis Jefferson might not even end up starting. Maybe Demary Carroll starts at power forward and Alan Crabb starts at small forward. We'll have to see. But just based upon what we are looking at right now, I think that's kind of what the depth chart looks like. And I think that's where we're headed to, or where we're at in terms of who is the 11th and 12th man and how they might kind of rotate in that as we go along in the year. Finally, the final note that I made tonight is that Jared Allen looks good. I mean, he had a nice dunk in this game. He's tall, he's athletic, he's long reach, and everything I've heard about him, he's a very smart guy. I mean, he certainly seems to be picking up things quickly. So I definitely think he could have a more and more prominent role as the season rolls along. I mean, if he has real talent. Like I said before, you take D'Angelo and Caris LeVert, and they may have the most talent on this team. Well, Jared Allen's up there as well. And I'm certainly not slighting Jeremy here, but I'm talking about in terms of height and athleticism and like reach and stuff like that. Jared Allen's a very talented player. Really talented. He had a 3-pointer in this game. So it's, hopefully he can develop quickly. I mean, he's already developing very rapidly. But maybe he'll keep on that pace, and his role on the team could possibly become even more prominent as the season rolls along. So that's about it. Look, it's again, the loss means absolutely nothing. It's preseason. It's been a very good preseason for the team. As I said, the concern is how do we match up against the Philadelphia 76ers? And based on tonight, that answer is not great or questionable anyways. We're going to have to do more. Absolutely, the bench will perform better than this on most nights, including against the 76ers, but going to have to figure some things out. We're going to have to be able to find a way to deal with this team. I'm just looking at the numbers very quickly in front of me right now, and this was a very, very high-paced game, like super high-paced. I'm just kind of looking at the numbers. I want to say the pace of this game, just browsing, was about 110, which is super high. Usually, if the Nets play a team and they play at that pace, they will crush the opponent. because the Nets are deep and they're used to running, and the opponent isn't as deep and they're not used to running. Well, the 76ers didn't have a problem with that tonight, and that's not a good sign for Brooklyn, because one of the ways Brooklyn beats you is with depth and with pace. So if Philadelphia can handle the pace and the depth, and they have better top-end talent, then it could be a difficult matchup for Brooklyn. So it's just something we're going to have to look at and kind of keep our eye on as we go forward. Okay, that's it for now. Hope you're having a great night or great day whenever you are around the world. This was the final preseason game for the Nets of this preseason in 2017. The Nets' first game of the regular season will take place 1 week from today, and hopefully we'll be able to catch it. I don't know if I'll be making any videos between now and then, but I'm hoping to be able to cover that game when it takes place. That will be, again, 1 week from now, Wednesday, October 18th. It will take place in Indianapolis, Indiana, against the Indiana Pacers at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care. Have a great night. And as I said, I will attempt to make a video following that game. I do think I'll be able to do that. Like I said, I've said in earlier videos, I don't know if I'll be able to do games the night of for this entire season, but I do think I will be able to do it for that game, or at least I will try to do it. It should be doable for me. So, see you in a week. Take care. Hope everything is well for you, and very much looking forward to the start of the 2017-18 regular season for the Brooklyn